So hi everyone, I'm a PhD student here at UC Berkeley, and I'm going to be here to talk about centipedes. So first I want to give you sort of like an idea about the habitats that I'm sort of studying, and definitely is in the soil, as you can tell. So this image is from baynature.org, the magazine Soil Matters, and I think it was a really wonderful illustration to sort of like show you the complexity of soils. Because most people, I feel like, don't appreciate soil as much because they think it's just dirt, but in fact, there's so much life in soil. Thousands of species can be in like 1 meter of soil. And this example image, some species could be like the springtails, these mites over here, there's earthworms, phyllins, and nematodes, and of course, a lot of fungi and bacteria and all these other microorganisms in the soil as well. And up here, there's centipedes, the ones that I'm studying, but in this image, it only shows the centipedes up here, but in fact, they can actually go and different species can go deeper into the soil because they're eating all these little critters in there. So I want to ask you all a question, and I want you to think about this, like based on your own experiences and observations. How many species of centipedes are there in California? Like anyone want to raise their hand and shout out an answer? Don't be shy. 100. Any other answers? 1,000. Whoa, that's a big number. 3. All right. So we got range of numbers. Range of numbers. Let's see who gets the closest. First, I'm going to introduce you to some of the common centipedes that a lot of you might have seen before. So this is the house centipedes, and they belong in the order Scutigera. So if you've ever seen these in your houses, you might be afraid of them. But they're pretty much harmless, and they're good for your house because they're eating all the pests around. But these are very distinctive because of their long legs and long antennae. And another group of centipedes that you might be familiar with are the tropical centipedes or the bark centipedes. And these species in this order generally have around 21 to 23 pairs of legs. And some species can actually go up to like 12 inches, which is about like, I actually measured my arm to see exactly the 12 inches that it was from the palm of my hand to my elbow. So that's how big some of these centipedes can get. But those, luckily, we don't have those that get that big around here in California. That's mostly for like in tropical regions like in Brazil. The species here, Scolopendra polymorpha, gets around only 3 to 4 inches out in the wild. And even like if they bite you, it won't be like hard, like it won't like, I guess, kill you. So that's good to know, right? So in terms of species diversity, the house centipedes, there's only really 1 or 2 species here, both introduced. And then for the tropical centipedes, there's 8 species. So we got 10 species so far. So more than 3. All right, so the next group, soil centipedes. These are one of the groups that I'm working on. And these are really long and skinny, and they have a lot of legs, 27 to 191 pairs of legs. And some species can reach up to 6 inches. And in terms of species diversity, there's around 60 in California. And then the other group and other order in California that I'm also working on is the stone centipedes. So these always have 15 pairs of legs as adults, and most species are actually pretty small. So if you can imagine a quarter size, most species won't be bigger than a quarter. But one species in California does get up to at least 2 quarter sizes. And here's 2 species in California that you can find in Southern California, Gossypias pauciflorens and Gossypias monaco. And the species diversity for this group is 80. So we have around 150 species in California. And I'll give a points to whoever got between 100 to 1,000. So there's 150 recorded species, but I've personally found over 30 species of these centipedes in California. So there's a lot of undiscovered diversity out there. And I estimate there to be probably over 200 species in California. So worldwide, there's around 3,000 species. So if we just take that into consideration, California has about 6% of all the centipede diversity in the world. And here are my sampling sites that I did. within the the Diablo Range. So Curry Canyon, San Antonio Valley Ecological Reserve, Blue Oak Ranch Reserve, Griswold Hills, and Laguna Mountain. And at these sites, the most species diversity I found was at Curry Canyon with 13 species, followed by Blue Oak Ranch Reserve with 10 species, and then Griswold Hills with 9 species. So in terms of habitat, a lot of these are like oak forests, grasslands, and right here in Griswold Hills, more like arid, sort of with junipers and ephedras. And here's like a species list of the things that I found. And you can see sort of like a pattern here that there's more species of soil centipedes, 18 species found throughout the range. And then 9 species of, that should be stone centipedes, not soil centipedes. And then I examined over 180 specimens, and they represented about 29 species that we found so far. And there's only 2 species of Scolopendromorphos. So here's sort of like a sort of an image to show you the size compared to a penny of these centipedes that they get. And a lot of these are, this is the Scolopendra polymorpha, but a lot of these actually get very, very small, and these are often overlooked. So as you can imagine, they're that small, so yes, of course, you're going to be overlooking them. But so then there's a couple of undescribed species. Let me go back to this. Let's see. Like this one, for example, if it's Espinolf, that means that's an undescribed species. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 undescribed species so far within the Mount Diablo range. So looking back at this image, like if you can imagine the habitat, and you see all these centipedes in there, what exactly are they doing? Like how is there so many different species of centipedes occupying the same habitat? And a lot of people have asked me that, so I wanted to share sort of like some insight into that. So here's an example of a centipede. Here's the mouth, the ventral side, and this is the forcepials, what you're seeing here, or they're also called the poison claws. But these aren't actually the mouth. That's like a modified leg appendage that they have adapted to sort of use to catch prey with. And when they attack the prey, they will inject the venom with these claws over here. So that's the forcepials, and then below the forcepials is this maxilla part over here. And oftentimes when I'm looking at these centipedes, I have to dissect the heads. So thousands of centipede heads in my house that I have to look through. And this maxilla can be divided into 2 other parts, the first maxilla and the second maxilla. And the first maxilla, you notice that it's like this. So an analogy for this part is like the tongue, in that it manipulates the food. And then the second maxilla, you see that as a little hook on the end. That's more for holding on to the prey while they're eating the food. And then below the maxilla is this part over here, the labrum and the mandibles. So the mandibles is analogous to the lip, and that also helps with holding on to the prey. And the mandibles is analogous to the teeth that we have, and that it uses these to chew up and crush prey items. So one of the things that's important about these mandibles is that it's very informative in terms of morphology, because it tells us what families or what groups of species belong in. So some species in these families have lamella that look like this, but then other ones have actually teeth to them, and this sort of shows the diversity of how they're eating, because if you have teeth, you can capture prey that have harder exoskeletons, whereas if you have this brush texture to the mandible, you'll be eating more of the soft arthropods or annelids and worms. And here's a study that was done by Bortolin et al. And they showed that when they analyzed the gut contents for these three groups, the earthworms, the springtails, and flies, they found like various proportions in their diet. So these centipedes aren't all eating the same thing. They have like specific groups that they're specialized in. And that's how they're sort of like coexisting together, because they're not all eating the same resource. They're sort of have their own different species that they're eating within the habitat. So that's the end of my presentation. I want to thank my advisor, Kip, and my lab for helping me collect specimens, and also to Marshall Hayden and Wyatt Mendez, because they've also provided me with specimens, but also definitely to you all, CMU Mount Diablo, and to the Mary Bowerman Science and Research Program, and to iNaturalist for providing me with data points on centipedes, and also to the Islamic Museum, because they also have specimens there. Yeah, I'll take questions now. Yep. Yes. It has a species that hasn't been discovered yet and hasn't been like formally have a name to it. So for generally, the average time for when a species is being discovered to when it's actually being described is around like 10 years. So it's a very long process, and especially it's a long process for groups that are very understudied, because then, like for my group, but I would have to figure it out first. Like for example, if I wanted to describe a species of Tayuna, so this is a mouth parts of Tayuna, and this genus is very similar to another genus, Arctogeophilus, but the difference between those two genera is just this labrum meeting in the middle or not. So I mean, can you really define a genus based on this one character? So that's one of the things I have to figure out, is if the morphology matches with, say, for example, genetic data, to see if the trees that we get DNA shows like monophyletic groups. Yeah.
I can imagine that there's a lot of benefits for centipedes, but could you elaborate on that a little bit? And are there beneficial applications for agricultural sciences to enhance soil?
So when it comes to soil, I believe in like the balance. That's how you keep the soil healthy, is if you have balance of animals that thrive in there. So centipedes are generalist predators, and some of them may be more specific towards other prey. But let's say, for example, if there's a springtail here and there's no predator eating them, then they can get out of control and start eating a lot of fungi instead. So in terms of like applications, you can definitely use like centipedes as like top-down control of these other smaller or microorganisms. Yeah. That's a very good question, and I don't think a lot of people, especially for centipedes, no one's really studied like the correlation between soil type to the diversity of centipedes. But I definitely do believe that it has an impact on how much species there are. But then again, one spot I found in Los Angeles County, I found like 14 different species, all within like a meter of each other, and the habitat didn't really look ideal. It was like very dry. So there could be something else going on in there. But generally, when it comes to that many species, I would expect there to be all different diversity of prey types in there as well.